you know that? Pharaoh did this. The same Pharaoh that pursued the Israelites. He saw peace the rest of his days. He saw there was only one true God. He cast away all this other stuff. He knew at that moment he had made a grave mistake, and so did mankind. And even he tried to warn people, but the people who came after him did not listen. And just like today, they won't listen. They think they have it right. They think their governments are right and how they rule is right. And you seldom ever hear that word mercy. You seldom hear about forgiveness. You know why? Because you can't talk about forgiveness when you're cultivating an atmosphere of violence. And violence is what's touching one another, touching people on this earth. It's breaking out just like God said it would. Iniquity is coming up to its full. Be careful not to fall into it. There are too many Christians falling in to these ideologies of divisiveness. Of all times in history, this is a time to turn back.
Well, that's Mike from around the world. That's listening to him talk tonight. I've been gone all day collecting firewood for the future, yes. Let's see, he's has an interesting story going on tonight. Absolutely. Straight out of the Bible. Now, tonight, Mr. Mike has sent out, I just got back, like I say, I've been looking, and I see Mr. Mike has been busy on Twitter today. The one thing that I noticed was that this tweet here is kind of odd, isn't it? Look, it says Joe Biden undid, what does that say? Joe Biden undid remain in Mexico, comma, stopped the construction of the border wall. I mean, it's, am I just not understanding it correctly, or is it worded weird, or Joe Biden undid remain in Mexico? Maybe I'm just not quite grasping what it says. But the one thing I do see is remain. Joe Biden undid remain, and remain's got a big capital letter in it. I'm sure people have been talking about this for at least 7 hours now, I guess, right? Is that a misspelling? Like I say, maybe I'm not understanding. Maybe remain is a noun, and I'm just not understanding who or what it is. But we'll get back to that in a second. I'm thinking it might be a misspelling. Now, if we take the timing between Mr. Mike's first tweet of the day and his last tweet of the day, no matter what time zone you are in, it's going to be 11 hours and 44 minutes. 6:33 in the morning on the Pacific Coast was his first, and his last tweet of the day so far is at 6:17. That gives us a time difference of 11 hours and 44 minutes. No big deal, right? No big deal, right? No big deal. Well, let's go back and look at this here. We can see that this tweet here that has a misspelling in it. Yeah? Joe Biden undid remain in Mexico. Okay, let's go look at the timestamp on that. Check it out. 11:44. That's the same time difference between Mr. Mike's first tweet of the day and his last tweet of the day. 11 hours and 44 minutes. The timestamp on the Pacific Coast of Joe Biden's, or excuse me, Mr. Mike's tweet that has a misspelling, a capital that's not really supposed to be there, I guess, right? Has the timestamp of 11:44. Are these find the markers? You think that might be the case? You know, I just got home and I'm like, well, wait a minute, if that seems to be too odd to me. So why don't I take the time difference between Mr. Mike's first tweet of the day and his second tweet of the day. Timing in between those two tweets. We know that this first one came in at 6:33 a.m. on the Pacific Coast. And the one with the misspelling came in at 11:44 a.m. on the Pacific Coast. No matter what time zone you're in, the timing between these two tweets will stay the same. There is a misspelling. The timing in between the two tweets stays the same. The time difference between those two tweets is 5 hours and 11 minutes. No matter what time zone, 6:33 a.m. 6:33 a.m. was his first tweet of the day on the Pacific Coast. And his next tweet was at 11:44 a.m. on the Pacific. No matter what time zone, the timing in between those two tweets is 5 hours and 11 minutes. Timestamp and gap code, gap is -1. -1 is 5:10. Queued up, 5:10. Important. Do you understand what just occurred? POTUS tweets. We got a kill box. Which, like I say, we did a little lesson last night about kill boxes, but it gets much, much more deeper. But we'll get into that in a little bit. This was not meant to signify auth/established. This is to train you how to understand the correlation between posts and tweets. Future proofs, past, wind the clock, clock and the graphic are existential. Feel privileged. POTUS just spoke to this board. President Trump, we serve at the pleasure of the president. Somebody, POTUS, tweeted out this here, this is talking about how this is meant to teach you how to interpretate the correlation between posts and tweets. Is that it, Anons? I don't know. I'm anonymous, and I don't know any of this stuff. How could I possibly know any of this stuff? I'm anonymous. I only decode timestamps. Timing in between tweets, there's no proof that anywhere says something like that. Even though here it does right here in this particular queued up, and many, many, many more. Timing in between tweets on misspellings on Mr. Mike's Twitter page goes to the Q drop that says timing in between tweets, find the markers, misspellings matter. It's purely coincidental, isn't it? Well, you can see I haven't had dinner yet. Why don't I go ahead and get myself a little bit more. I'll have myself something to drink, get myself a coffee maybe, or juice, or I've got my ribs cooling off right now. I'll eat something, and we'll see if we've got any more lessons out there for the day. Yeah, we'll just stop that right there. Timing in between tweets correlate to the keyboard. Have a good night.